And the thing is that there's no show command for this. If you check the documentation at command documentation, towards the end of that command documentation, it'll show you associated commands, and a lot of times it will show you show commands so that you can verify, that you've configured what you think you've configured. With security authentication failure rate command, there is no show command for that, short of, you can do a show run include security. And you have to include the include. That's my typing and talking disability. Sorry about that. So we can see it's in the running configuration, but there's no other way to verify this. So let's go ahead and pop on back over to R1. And I'm going to clear the screen real quick here. Pardon my mess. And if we up arrow. Okay, so we're going to telnet to R2, and we're going to try and log in. And we set it for 3. We probably should have set it for 2. Okay, let's go back. The only reason I'm doing this is because, and here's a quick and dirty way to do this. If you up arrow, it'll show your last configuration. So we were in global configuration. This works great. If you're in a sub configuration mode like interface, you're going to want to up arrow till you hit the interface and then get into it. But let's go ahead and make this 2. That way we're sure, because we don't know. I'm assuming that it's equal to, after 2 failures, it'll implement the 15 seconds and log if it worked. 3, it could be either 3 or 4 failures, depending. This way, when you telnet, you're going to get your 3 attempts. That way, if we fail 3 times here, then we will have, with 3 failed attempts, we should generate the syslog and invoke the 15-second login delay. So let's go ahead and we'll just use fake. Failed. Failed. And failed. Okay, so kicked us back out. Let's go over to R2 and show log. So all this logging is from it coming up, but we can see that we didn't get a log for the failure, which is something that it says that it would do. And we'll try this one more time. And unfortunately, with the timing on this, too bad we can't set this to 1. I'll type these fast. Fake. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. See, I can't do that even. What I was trying to say is that you can see that there's not a 15-second delay here. So it's not the case where, not only, it's not the case where it just did not generate the syslog message on R2. If you go by my goofy counting, you could see that there wasn't a 15-second login delay either. I was able to, telnet back in here rather quickly. I don't see any difference between, the response time versus, just not having that command configured. So we'll do a show log one more time and see that nothing new has been entered to the log. Now, since we configured this. Okay, so let's pop on over to R3, and we're going to do a couple things here first. So let's go ahead, and remember this is one with the newer code. So what I want to do first is, remember it said that the default was 10. When you have, let's go back and do this first. IP subnet. What I'm doing here is I'm in configuration mode, so again I use do. So I'm taking a look at the running configuration, and I'm including anything that has that includes IP subnet. What I'm looking for specifically is IP subnet 0. By default, the newer routers, the routers with the newer code rather, have IP subnet 0 enabled by default. And I'm not going to go into what that does, but I just want to show you that when something's enabled by default, if you do a show run, you're not going to see it. So now if I do IP subnet 0, and there's no arguments for this. Okay, so I've configured that. So normally when you configure something and you do a show run, you should be able to see it. But because this is already enabled by default, iOS isn't going to bother to throw it on there. And the rationale behind that, it makes sense. It's, you don't want to have a running config that has, if there's tons and tons and tons of default stuff on there, you just want to see the stuff that you configured. That, you don't want to see all that stuff. But I would argue that it would be nice to be able to see the defaults. I'm getting off on a real quick tangent here. I'll bring it back real shortly here. I know that with other platforms, specifically like the ASA, there is a command that's show run all, I believe, and that will show your running config and include the default configurations, which is very cool. There's documentation for that for the routers. I've not seen it work on the routers. But anyways, okay, so I don't lose you here with my rambling. What I'm trying to point out that if I do no IP subnet 0, now that is not the default. So I've disabled something that's a default. If I do the show the run config, I should see this now. Okay, so you see, my point here is that when you configure something that is not a default, it will show up in the running configuration. And let me just go ahead and set this back. And I'm going to clear the screen real quick. So what I'm going to try and show you here is that if you configure security authentication failure rate 10 log. So if the default was 10, then that means that if I do a show run and I include security authentication, I just use the first couple letters, it'll match on that. So it finds it. So basically what we're proving here, and I know this is probably more convoluted than it should have been, is that if you enter this command and it is the default, then it won't show up like we showed with the IP subnet 0. IP subnet 0 is a default command, therefore it doesn't show up. So this default rate of 10, it's not true. Hopefully that made sense. I think that I explained this a little better on the slides, but I just want to show you on the CLI. So let's go ahead and make this 2 as well. I'm going to write this, and I'm actually going to clear the log. Show log first to make sure logging's on there, and clear the log so that we don't have all this garbage on there, and then I'll actually clear the screen here. Alright, let's pop on back over to R1. We can clear the screen here too, and makes it look a little better. And we're going to telnet to 13.3, and we're going to do our fake username password combination. And actually, you can watch the running time on your video to see. Yeah, it sure doesn't look like 15 seconds, does it? So we'll actually generate 6 of these just for poops and giggles. And it will failure. Okay, so now we're on R3. Show log, surprise, surprise, it's not working. So, it'll accept the commands. It's in the iOS help. You've got documentation for it, but it really isn't functioning. And, we can do this here with, just to prove to you that it's not just the VTY lines. So I've got this set up for the console login as well, and you can see it didn't seem like a 15-second delay. I'm going to, that should be enough, so let's go ahead and log in. And nothing. With the console login as well, so it wasn't, I just wanted to show that it wasn't just the VTY line that this didn't work on. I had this set up in global config, so therefore logically anything that was using the login command that required a login password would be affected. In this case, the console line, we did the same thing. We generated actually 5 bad password username password combinations, and it failed to generate a syslog. It also failed to lock us out for 15 seconds. So basically, like I described in the slides, this feature doesn't seem to work. You probably do want to be aware of it for your certification exams, specifically the CCNA security exam, and just quickly look at the documentation, know any of the defaults, whether they're clear or not. If you actually want to implement something like this, I would strongly suggest that you look into the login blocking feature. It will do everything that this command purports to do, and you'll have a lot more control over it. So I hope that this has been of use to you, and I hope to see you again soon. Thanks for viewing. Bye.